Thank you for joining me again tonight. This is part two of I think it was episode 8. Part one was shot earlier today. I had mentioned that I ran into a big problem and I was gonna talk about it in this episode here. It actually was a big problem until I started to sit down and take measurements, remeasurements, more remeasurements, and that's where my calipers came in. Big time help. This is gonna sound silly, but let me take my time to explain it the best way I can. What I noticed on the videos, what immediately catches my eye anyways, when I look at the prototype running down in Austin. And the moment I saw the video for the very first time about 2 years ago, it immediately caught my eye. It was just locked into this feature, which I'm going to talk about here, which was starting to lack on mine, and that is it's the prototype's compactness. It's literally a little box that goes straight up, and it's fully crowded. Every square inch of space of that little box, that armored citadel, is chock full of something. There's no air spaces or gaps anywhere on her. So I started studying the video tape more closely. I started freeze framing and taking screenshots and blowing up the image and stuff. And I was correct. And I'll show you where. My cab, it's been adjusted here on this mock-up. But my cab sat way too high from AMT. That's just the way it's locating. Mounting pins are right here under the radiator. And once you mount it into its position, it's going to sit kind of up here. According to my measurements, I was correct because I've lowered it to visually match the prototype on the videotape. And in doing so, I noticed before I had done that, I had a huge wheel gap up here between the bottom of the top of the wheel well and the top of the wheel itself. I had a huge gap or airspace where that does not exist on the prototype. So I lowered the cab where it should be, eyeballed it, and this is perfect right here where I got it. What it's going to require for me to do, and that's why I installed the radiator grill on this thing. When I usually don't do that at first, is because the radiator grill at the bottom has the actual locating or mounting pins molded onto the radiator part itself. I'm going to change all that with the way I mount using my hinge system, but I wanted to get an idea where the cab was going to sit in relationship to where I felt it should sit. My personal opinion is the cab should be lowered about 3/16, not quite 3/16 of an inch downwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use the original locating pin holes. I'm going to re-drill my holes about 3/16 of an inch, not quite, a little lower, so my mounting pins on my cab or my hinge system will sit lower but still sit in those pins theoretically. But it would allow the cab to sit lower, to have the correct wheel spacing here, and not sit like it had a bad case of high waters, which is where it was heading. Now I keep mentioning that the real one, the prototype we're modeling here down in Austin, I'll show you the videotape right now and you'll start to see a little closer what I mean once I explain what I'm going to explain right here. I think the charm of that little guy is it literally is a stubby little brick or block, and everything on there fits within that rectangular block section. And I'll show you guys when we bring it up. That's what caught my eye about that, and that's why I kind of wanted to build it. It reminded me of a Sherman tank, short and stubby, yet full of a lot of firepower and a lot of metal. Mine was lacking. So in order for me to lower the cab, I noticed I was also having another problem, and that was when my cab sat too high, this cab overhang on the dump bed would touch my cab and not allow me to push my dump bed this way. So it resulted in this huge airspace here. I said, oh boy, but it was an easy fix also. What I'm gonna do, it's very easy. Literally, you have to just mount your dump bed about half an inch, not quite half an inch, this way. You're barely gonna have any air gap in there, about the width of this pointer here, this scriber. So the dump bed will come over here. Now it's very important on the prototype, what immediately caught my eye and told me I could build this model was the bottom edge of my dump bed lines up perfectly with the bottom edge of the door on the real one. I had lost that feature here because my cab sat way too high. So now that I lowered the cab and I slightly raised the dump bed, just very slightly, my two lines of, my two reference points as far as keeping the model nice and level now match more or less. That's going to allow me to push the dump bed this way. I don't know, what's that, 3/8 of an inch probably, about right here. But immediately you spot a problem here. This is what was freaking me out earlier today, is that my cab overhang is gonna be literally touching and rubbing, resting on top of the cab. So how do I fix that without messing up all the measurements I took down here that are correct for the prototype? I didn't want to lose any of those measurements. I don't want to lose this line or the cab sitting lower or the dump bed sitting up a little high where it's at. Those are crucial for the look I'm trying to achieve in just a small little block, compact block of chunky metal, which is what I refer to the prototype in my mind anyways. I didn't want to lose that, and I didn't want to stretch out the frame so I could accommodate the dump bed way back here. That's not correct. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut off this whole front wall of styrene. Leave the overhang intact, don't touch that at all. Cut out this whole front wall of styrene with a razor blade or X-Acto knife or a little saw all the way around to the other side so it comes off. I'm going to find out how much in terms of distance or measurements my cab overhang is going to have to go up. I don't think it's going to be the width of this scribe. It's probably going to be less, but I'll figure it out. I'll take a measurement of that distance and I'll transfer it over to a piece of styrene sheet that's this thickness here, and I'll use the height for width on that styrene sheet when I cut it, glue it onto the bottom of this wall that I'm going to cut out, reform all the cutouts and stuff around the frame. That's no big deal. Glue it on, let it dry, and then the dump bed will sit exactly where it's at the height it's at, only with the cab overhang feature a little bit higher where it should be, just a little bit, so it clears the cab. That will allow me to push the whole dump bed forward, not quite half an inch, but it'll result in this big giant air gap here being reduced to about the width of that scriber right there. That's going to give it its compactness, that look of a Sherman tank, a little stubby armored chunk of metal, and it'll soothe and be pleasant, believe it or not, as dorky as that sounds, to my eyes. I mentioned the height of the dump bed is perfect, and I didn't want to change it along with the cab because they now match according to the videotape. According to the videotape, another thing that finally sealed the deal for me to do it this way was I noticed the bottom of the dump bed's height in relationship to the top of the wheel height of the two axles here, the two wheels. And on the videotape, it looks like it's just under, it's about 1.5 feet. And that's what I got here, just under 1.5 feet. It was sitting way up here, believe it or not, and that was bugging me too. So we lowered it to where it should be. Everything is perfect. We got our fuel tank. It's a used fuel tank off of my diamond reel, believe it or not. We'll clean it up, add different ends on it, but fits that gap perfectly. We'll add the battery box and that weird exhaust that blows downward on the other side. You know, your marker lamps, the bumper. I have the bumper here. The bumper on the videotape is just like this, only it doesn't have any openings here. It's all flat. And it's not a Freightliner bumper that I've seen. They probably put it on from another rig. So I went ahead and got one that looks closest to it. This is off of the Revell that snap together kit. I think it's a 359. And that bumper, once I close in these openings, will be perfect for the front and match the prototype exactly. Only thing is these rounded corners here kind of flare off at an angle, kind of like a V. I'm always using that term. So I'm going to sand them down and file them in place, because on the real one, the prototype we're copying, they kind of sit more straight up and down. Seal the holes, fix the angle. I'm going to use Alclad chrome painting system for this bumper. I might even film the little process for us here. But now I'm going to lift the dump bed in order to show you what I got to show you. But that's not going to be the height it's going to sit at. It's going to sit at this height. But take a look what's going to happen to that gap. And take a look at this large overhang, what's going to happen when I do the fixes that I'm just mentioned right here. See, now you get that short, stubby, compact look, which is what attracted me to this model in the first place, this project. So I think that's going to be about it for today. Short, quick video, straight to the point. I'm going to shoot a couple more videos here in the next couple of days. I'd like for you to check them out. They're going to be covering some pretty interesting information. They're going to be short, quick videos. One was going to be my photo etch sheet for, Freightliner units. I want to talk about this guy. We're going to open the pack, and I have some interesting stuff to say about that. Join me for that episode here in a day or two. It's going to be a quickie episode. Another episode I'm going to do involves the mirrors from AMT for the diamond reel. And watch the video. I'm going to talk about something very interesting about these guys right here. So we got our headlights in place. And believe it or not, those are from the AMT C600 kits. It's perfect for the Freightliner. We're just going to sand them a lot thinner. I try to use my Western cowboy shirts snap buttons for headlights, but these are humongous compared to the real ones, and you can tell just by looking at the AMT one on the left and the Western wear shirt, one of my older shirts, on the right hand side. So we're not going to be using these after all, although that was a huge thing for me, but you know, it's not going to work. That's it for this video. Thank you for joining me. Let me think if I can cover or talk about anything else. We got our rims to match the prototype, so we're all squared away with our rims. We're all squared away with our tires. Our steering mechanism is awesome. Oh, here's something I did want to cover with you guys real quick. Now it looks odd because we're sitting up high on a tripod, we're shooting downwards, but you could see where I trimmed out and kept the radius going for the front left wheel fender well. Remember, the AMT one is radiused out to about right here, then it just drops straight down, looking like it's touching, or would always touch, or it's super close to touching that front tire. Maybe that's why they made the cab sitting up so high. So just go ahead and continue cutting out, or with a file like I did, continue that radius to the very point or corner of your cab. Sorry about that. And you're going to change the overall look of the AMT Freightliner and that weird look it always has. This area here is just too much going on the AMT original cab kits. There's a lot of stuff going on for a tiny space, and all the stuff going on, all the moving parts and stuff, so to speak, none of them benefit the AMT Freightliner as it should. So I'm just pointing out stuff that I did to improve on a pretty cool kit from AMT, and that would be the white Freightliner kit. Alright, I'll let the video play out. I won't talk anymore. Let the music play. You guys check her out. Alright, you guys take care. Thank you for joining me. Join me in the next few videos. I got some interesting stuff to show you guys. You guys take care.